If you've had any cryptid encounters that you'd like me to share on my channel, email me at jttosstories@gmail.com. Story 1. I've always been into the paranormal, as most of us here are. In January 2019, I noticed something lumbering down my driveway. The window I was looking out faces over and above the drive, if that's clear. For example, I can see the roof of your car, but not always the bottom of the tire. Regardless, I notice movement. I look out and see what I initially thought was a bear, nose to the ground, kind of snuffling its head side to side, casually walking down the drive on all fours. A little geographical clarity. I live in town. The front of my neighborhood faces a major highway, but the back is all state game lands. I've seen some wildlife, turkeys, a deer here and there, and every skunk in the county apparently lives on my street. I don't see many squirrels, groundhogs, or chipmunks, which is a bit odd. I'm not very far from the city of Scranton, enjoy Office fans, about 7 miles from downtown, so not exactly in the sticks. I watch this bear mosey down toward the street, its head lowered. I moved from the living room window to my bedroom window that had a full view of the street. Sure enough, here it comes, but something is wrong. I watched this not bear stand on 2 legs and casually walk out into the road. I see pointed ears and a long snout. It's got its head raised, smelling the air. This was no bear. I saw it in a perfect silhouette under the yellow street light. It was either dark gray or black. The yellow light threw off the true color. It stood without effort, looked like one fluid movement. It then walked across the road, casual as you please, and kind of hunkered down in some scrub brush. I'm not sure what kind of brush, but it's like forsythia, all tangled and thick. Then I realized it was looking right into my bedroom. It had blue eyes. I'm not sure if that was reflected light or that they were glowing. It looked right at me. I lost my legs at that moment and sat down under my window, absolutely panicked. I was home alone with 5 cats and a dog who ended up sleeping through the whole thing. I did not know what to do. My window is a big picture window, and if it wanted me, it easily could have gotten me. I cautiously got on my knees to peek over the sill, and I lost it. Didn't see eyes or their owner anywhere. It seemed to be either moving away from the forest behind my house, or it decided to rest up in that scrub bush. What I saw under the streetlight is as follows. Darkish fur, high-pointed ears, long muzzle. I never saw teeth or if it had a tail. It had hands with long claws that hung kind of limp wrist. If they were fully extended, they would probably hang below the knee. It walked digigrade on dog legs. It looked very heavily muscled, but had a tapered waist. It was between 7 and 7.5 feet tall, judging from where it stood in relation to the streetlight. It was non-aggressive, even when I felt it looked right at me. I was terrified, but I didn't get a sense that it was angry it had been seen, as some people report. I didn't take a picture because I simply didn't think to. I was in a fair amount of shock, and I'm sure I'll catch flack for this, but sometimes your phone is the absolute last thing on your mind. The next day, I called Vic Cundiff of Dogman Encounters Radio. His advice was solid, and I try to remember it when I have to go out at night. There have been some odd sounds, tapping at my window. I can hear scratching of the siding. I don't see that many animals around the neighborhood. There used to be about 7 stray cats that I would feed. They're all gone. Once the weather broke, it's been quiet. I installed motion lights and bought 2 game cameras, hoping they are in a sense like Sasquatch. I believe they will avoid game cams. I don't ever want to see this thing again. Those of you who want to see one, pray you never do. My encounter was entirely non-aggressive. I can't imagine having to deal with this thing actually mad. I still can't sleep a full night, and every sound scares me after dark. I live alone, and the 357 I own would probably just ruffle its fur. Thank you for taking the time to read this. It was a terrifying animal to see. I hope I never see it again, but sadly that wasn't in the cards. I'll share that story another time. Be careful out there. You never know what's out there waiting. Another disturbing thought. If Dogman is real, what else is? Story 2. In January of 2010, I was driving to Los Angeles after spending the holidays with my family, taking I-40 the whole way. After a long day of driving, I stopped at Holbrook, Arizona to get a hotel room for the night. I get the room, pull around to the back parking lot, and park my car. I open the back door and start to grab my bags and get my stuff together that I was going to take inside for the night. All of a sudden, I hear a crazy sounding roar. The closest I can come to describing it is that it sounded like a mixture of a bear roaring, a pig squealing, and a baby crying. I freeze, look up, and standing on the edge of the raised parking lot next door, some kind of man-dog thing. It's probably between 7 and 8 feet tall. I look at it, it roars again, and I take off running towards my hotel room. I get to the door, scared out of my mind, fumbling with my keycard, and it roars again, like it's just to the left of me. I get the key in the door, lock the door, and run in the bathroom and lock that door too. I sat there for maybe 30 minutes. Then I grabbed the pillows, blankets off the bed, and slept in the bathtub all night with the door locked. I started searching on my phone for what on earth that was, and that was the night I learned about skinwalkers. If that exists, then what else does that isn't supposed to? What was almost just as crazy is that when I bolted towards my room, I left my car unlocked and the door was wide open. It stayed open all night, and nothing was taken or stolen. I had a bunch of expensive music equipment in there. But yeah, be careful on the edges of a Navajo reservation. Story 3. My Dogman encounter happened on season opener in November of 2013 in the eastern upper peninsula of Michigan on family hunting property near a town called Cedarville. The house my husband and I were staying in up there had a big front yard, but other than that cleared area and the gravel driveway, everything else is pretty deep hardwood forest. I also want to state ahead of time that this happened at around 11 p.m., so everything that was beyond the porch lights was pretty hard to see. My husband and I had gone outside to have a cigarette. We took the rifle out with us whenever we were hanging around outside, because there are bear and other stuff back there in that area. I was on the porch still, and my husband had gone down the steps into the yard and was facing towards me when we heard these really heavy, slow footsteps coming up the driveway through the woods. It sounded like a really big man, but there was this weird, heavy breathing too, and the footsteps, even though they sounded like a person's, sounded heavier than anything I'd ever heard walking in the woods, including full-sized adult bear. My husband looked at me and mouthed, "What?" And I was trying to figure out what it was that I was hearing, but nothing I'd ever heard out there in those woods in my whole life matched the size and breathing and gait of whatever this was, so I was confused and shaking my head. My husband isn't a hunter and grew up in the city, so he was completely confused too. I've hunted and tracked basically everything that's indigenous to northern Michigan since I was small, so I was honestly terrified that this animal was completely unknown to me by sound. It walked out of the tree line at the edge of the yard, behind my husband, and it was a lot taller than him, at least 7 feet tall or more. I'd estimate the weight for its size at around 400 pounds. It was on 2 legs, and its super dark black fur that was somehow even darker than the nighttime dark of the woods. It He was walking back and forth at that distance from us this whole time the encounter happened, but he would not step into where the perimeter of the porch light was. I had a really hard time making out its torso for that reason, but I saw a wolf-like head and snout with pointed ears that stuck straight up. And instead of front legs and paws, it had really disproportionately long arms and hands. It was on 2 legs this whole time, walking back and forth. I freaked out and grabbed the rifle and just started shooting at it and yelling at my husband to run and get up on the porch. So he did, and then he took the gun from me, told me to find something else to use as a weapon and to go inside and hide, so I did. I got a big knife and went and locked myself in our bedroom in the closet. Could hear my husband shooting and reloading a bunch for about another 10 minutes. Came in and told me through the closet door the dog man had finally run off, but he wasn't sure if it was going to possibly come back. So we were both pretty terrified, and I ended up staying in that closet all night until sunrise, with my husband guarding the door with the gun. He told me that he thought I'd hit it when I was shooting at first, but the next day we couldn't find any blood or hair or anything, which I thought was weird, because I really thought I must have shot and wounded it a couple times. It moved incredibly fast and was agile enough to run through the brush and stuff without really mowing it down or making a bunch of noise like big animals usually do running through dense underbrush and stuff. The whole encounter was incredibly weird and scary. My husband also said that he did see it sort of hunch over and drop down onto all fours a few times while it was running back and forth at the edge of the yard, but that when it ran away for good that night, it was running insanely fast and on 2 legs like a man. We didn't smell anything bad, like a lot of people describe, when they see these things, and it didn't even leave any noticeable tracks anywhere, even though the thing was so heavy when it was walking up the gravel driveway that I swore the ground near it must have been shaking. We found out later from one of the neighbors that he had seen it too, next door the winter before, when it came up on the porch of his cabin and looked in the door window during a party he and his wife had been throwing. He said he heard really heavy footsteps on the porch and pulled back the curtain on the window, and the dog man was standing there on the other side of the glass looking down at him, but that fur was white then. I think that's probably because there was snow on the ground at that point in the year. My neighbor hollered at everyone in the cabin and told them what he had just seen, and then everyone decided to make a run for it through the woods to his mom's house next door, since her place was a lot sturdier than the hunting cabin. I've known that neighbor my whole life, practically since high school, and he would never make something like that up. He was scared even while he was just talking about it. I also read somewhere online recently that another family about 45 miles north of our area had a bunch of livestock like cows and horses turned up dead and torn up by some kind of big predator. That one of the guys in the family saw a giant upright wolf back near his hunting blind during deer season, which of course freaked me out since we had our experience on season opener. The land butting up to that family's property is hundreds of miles, the Hiawatha National Forest, so it would make sense to me that a big animal would hide in and near a protected area like that when it's hearing gunshots everywhere else. My lot and my neighbor's lot are also right alongside state land. My husband and I moved since all this happened, but the experience was so upsetting to me that I constantly research online to see if anyone else had seen this thing up north and what their encounter was like and stuff. I've heard that there's a small pack of 4 or 5 of them that live in state forests downstate in Isabella County that a bunch of locals in the nearby area have seen, that someone one night even saw one in downtown Saginaw, Michigan. What scares me about that is the fact that there's no tree cover there, as it's a city. I wonder if people all over the state are seeing these animals because they're getting forced out of their usual hunting territories due to hunting, logging, and mining that's really increased over the years here.